What's going on guys, Aero here, and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, I want to talk to you guys about the latest information about Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, as well as just some other things with Pokemon, right from Game Freak's developers Mr. Junichi Masuda and Mr. Shigeru Ohmori. Now it looks like today might have been a day where some embargoes ended, as multiple media outlets put up a lot of interviews with Game Freak's developers Mr. Shigeru Ohmori, as well as Mr. Junichi Masuda. And so a lot of interviews have come out today, but if I read through every single interview and read all of the questions from each interview to you guys in this video, this would make that video really long, so I don't want to do that. So basically what I did was I read through every single article and I picked out the most interesting questions about Pokemon Sword and Shield, as well as like Pokemon and how they develop and like the other questions that I just found interesting and want to give you guys my thoughts on. Now if any of you guys are interested in reading these interviews in their entirety, I will have a link to all the articles down below in the description, so you can definitely go ahead and click on that after watching this video if you want to go and read everything. But yeah, I made sure to pick out the big points and the things that I found the most interesting, so yeah, let's get started. Alright, so the first article that we have here is from Metro, and so one of the interesting things that I found in this article was the person said, of course the Nintendo Switch is more capable in many other ways, and one thing that struck me when playing the demo is that I'm not sure exactly why it doesn't have voice acting. I think that it would benefit from it, and I still don't understand. Although I am sure that there's a stock answer to this, like why don't all their Pokemon have their anime voices, why don't they shout out their names? And so Mr. Shigeru Ohmori responded by saying, so there's sort of two main reasons. So firstly, this is an RPG with a whole lot of text that we're localizing and releasing in 9 different languages at the same time. So from a purely practical point of view, actually getting that organized and carrying out all the voice acting, the corrections, and all that in 9 different languages for release on the same day would be incredibly difficult. So that's one reason why we haven't chosen to do it this time around, but the other reason is the character image, in the sense that when you play a game, if you've got a voice on that character, that instantly provides to the player an image or a feel of the character that they don't generate themselves. It's pushed on them by the development side, whereas if you have a really flavorful text for those characters but no voice, the characters can kind of generate their own image of who that character is as they're playing, and that's something that we really like to encourage as we're developing games. So yeah, when talking about voice acting, he said it'll be really hard because Pokemon releases in so many different languages. It will be very hard to get voice actors for every language and release the game on the same day. So I can kind of see where he's coming from, but I really think that for voice acting, they would just need to do 2 languages. Most video games really just do 2 main languages for the voice acting, like they have a Japanese voice acting and then they have English voice acting. I don't think it's necessary to have like German and Italian and Spanish and all these other different languages that Pokemon is played in, but I can kind of see where he's coming from. I just think that it would have been fine if they just had English and Japanese voice acting, and then if the language that you want to hear voice acting doesn't have it, you could just still play the game normally and have the text dialogue. The next question is, one of the other things is that while Pokemon is an RPG, the storytelling and characterization has always been, for obvious reasons, a low priority. I wonder if that's something that's changed this time, and while it is understandable that the story isn't all at the forefront, I often thought that Pokemon is in a slightly awkward position where the story and dialogue can't be too serious, but it's also rarely purposefully funny, not something like in Paper Mario. And so Mr. Shigeru Ohmori responded by saying, when we're creating the story for Pokemon games, the biggest thing for us over the story is actually the gameplay. So we really want to create solid gameplay that people can enjoy. The story is what we make to really bring out the best aspects of the gameplay, and that's how we go about it. Rather than starting by saying that we want to make this a grand story and building the game from that, instead we start with the gameplay aspects. So in terms of story for this time around, it's a very simple tale of wanting to become a superstar. You've got this kind of sports event related gym challenge, and you want to become a star, so you want to become a champion. And so that kind of simple story is something that can really immerse people into the gameplay, fighting to become a champion. Now this was definitely one of the most interesting things when reading through all the interviews, and so it really looks like that at Game Freak they prioritize the gameplay when making a Pokemon game over the story. And so like usually whenever you get an RPG, usually a lot of people get it for the story, like the story is really like one of the best parts of an RPG, but Pokemon is always like a special type of RPG where it really isn't always that much about the story and how deep the story can get with the characters and stuff, but it's more about just like your adventure and you wanting to become a champion and taking down these evil teams, catching all the Pokemon. So I can definitely see where they're coming from. They want to make sure that the gameplay is still fun, and that's why they've got like the Dynamaxing and the Mega Evolutions and the Z-moves in previous games. So I can kind of see where they're coming from, and it definitely does make sense. And so while they do prioritize gameplay over the story, I would love to see what a Pokemon game could be like though if one time they just decided to completely put story over gameplay and put like a really deep and rich story with characters. The closest that we've ever gotten to this was with Pokemon Black and White. Pokemon Black and White story was actually really deep, and if you think about it a lot, it's actually pretty interesting. But I feel like it would be really cool if Pokemon could actually get like a really deep story. I know the Pokemon manga can definitely do this. I haven't read it myself, but I've heard that it actually gets really deep. But I would love to see what a Pokemon video game could be like if they prioritize the story over gameplay and just add a lot of cool things to it. Now of course, I'm sure that you guys know that the National Pokedex isn't going to be inside of Pokemon Sword and Shield. Not all the Pokemon are going to be in these games. There are going to be some Pokemon that are cut, and so that's definitely been a really big thing about these games, and so it was brought up inside of these interviews. And when talking about this, Mr. Junichi Masuda responded by saying, "We put a great deal of effort into developing each and every game as the project begins, and we do feel that everyone having their opinion is important. But from a developmental perspective, when we go into deciding what we're going to do to take Pokemon in the future, we have to make several decisions on what to put in the games and how we want to improve things or change things as we go. So as part of that, we reached the decision to take out the National Pokedex and keep the Pokemon the way that it's been announced. There are many challenges that we face as we go, different styles of gameplay we want to implement, and we've got a lot of communication features that we're working on. And of course, one of the really big things that we think about is how we can make the game really fun for the fans. And as we're working on all of this, we took the decision to make the Pokedex the way that it is, and from a developmental point of view, this is something that we have to do each time we put effort and thought into making those types of decisions." So yeah, they're still sticking by what they said with no National Dex inside of Sword and Shield, and every Pokemon game from now on isn't going to have all the Pokemon in them. There's only going to be a limited number, but from what they've always said in the interviews when talking about this, they've said that there's lots of gameplay features and things that they've wanted to add into Pokemon games, but they couldn't do it before because they wanted to make sure that all the Pokemon were there, and this time around they were just like, you know what, we're really going to prioritize having a lot of features and gameplay ideas, and so that's why they're not going to have all the Pokemon. Now because Sword and Shield aren't out yet, there's really no way to tell how much of this is true, but like if we do get Pokemon Sword and Shield and there's lots of crazy new gameplay features and cool things that they've added into the games, then I won't be so upset with not having all my Pokemon inside of these games if there's a lot of other cool features and things that I get to do inside of these games instead. But like if we do get Pokemon Sword and Shield and there isn't really a lot of cool new features that they've added, then I'll be a little bit disappointed. So we're really gonna have to just wait for the games, and then I'll let you guys know how I feel about all of this, and I'll let you guys know, I'll probably make a whole review video and give you guys my thoughts on it. Alright, so now we're going to be moving on to Polygon's interview, and the question that I have from Polygon's interview was there was an interview where recently Ohmori mentioned that 1,000 people have been involved in this game in one capacity or another, and I know that involves not just Game Freak but lots of other companies and departments. I was just curious what the biggest resource pool is, and what aspect of these games requires the most people. And so Mr. Ohmori responded by saying, so yeah, the number is being close to 1,000, but that of course includes all the different functions like marketing, the PR, and everyone that would be associated with the game ahead of release. But I think that at Game Freak, really the core team of people that worked on the game was around 200 people. And of course, Creatures is another partner company that develops the 3D models of the Pokemon. There's also various teams that handle debugging at our partner companies as well. There's a lot of people involved, and I think that in terms of just sheer number, there's the most resources required to make something like this happen in the development, and it's definitely the more on the graphical side of things. Like I've mentioned, Creatures was involved in creating models, but even at Game Freak, with the increased power of the Switch, we really have tried richer and more expressive visuals, and we really needed more people this time. And so yeah, this was just a pretty straightforward statement. I know when this information first came out, people were saying like 1,000 people worked on Sword and Shield. There's a lot of development that's being done for these games, and so this is good because this is some clarification here. He's not saying specifically that 1,000 people worked on the games like themselves, like the content. He's just saying 1,000 people have gotten their hands on this game to help make everything that it is. Like he's talking about like localization, the people who worked on the trailers and promos and stuff like that, not like 1,000 people actually coding and working on the game. He said that number is around 200, but it is nice to see that a lot of people are taking part in these games. The next question was, where did the idea for Team Yell come from? And Mr. Ohmori responded by saying, so one of the themes with Pokemon Sword and Shield with the Galar region is that Pokemon battles are really like a sport that's widely enjoyed as entertainment in the region. Similar to how you'll see soccer teams that have really huge fan followings, you'll see that there's a lot of fans and supporters for different gyms that are inside of the region. The idea was that this was like a group that's similar to how you see followings for idols inside of Japan. They're really backing this very specific trainer, Marnie, and they really want to support her and make sure that she becomes a champion. And so I do like how they're trying to make the Galar region as similar to the UK as they can, and you guys know in like the UK there's so many fans of like lots of different sports teams, and so that's what they're trying to do this time with like the gyms inside of these games. And with like the whole idea of Marnie's like supposed to be this really cool popular character, and she's got a lot of these fans that are Team Yell. The thing about them though is that Team Yell is supposed to be like an evil team, isn't it? Like, isn't that supposed to be like the Team Galactic, the Team Plasma of these games? But it just doesn't seem like they have any evil intentions. They're just kind of backing up this girl Marnie. So I don't know, maybe there's actually like an evil team that's hidden that they haven't shown yet, but that's like the thing that I'm a little bit unsure about as to how it's going to be in the game, because I'm really expecting like an evil team that's trying to get in my way, and not like in terms of how they're getting in the way of trying to make sure that Marnie becomes champion, but rather just like trying to do evil things and making things like a bad place. I don't know, it's kind of just weird with Team Yell, but I guess we'll see when the games come out. Now the next interview that I have here is from VG247, and so the only question that I have from them is the last few years you've sort of been doing one of these really big game releases every single year. Pokemon has practically become a yearly series. Is that something that you plan to continue with? And so Mr. Masuda responded by saying, the first thing that's kind of important in deciding the future direction is releasing Sword and Shield. It's seeing the response to that. That's more important of where we go in the future. It's not necessarily that we're always looking to release every single year, but in time of making a new game and starting a new project, we look exactly at what we want to create, and from there we decide the most appropriate timing to release it depending on the various factors. One thing that we always want to keep in mind going forwards is that we want to have as many people to come in contact and play Pokemon as possible. We've obviously got a long time fans who've been involved with the series for a long time, and we definitely want to keep them playing the games that they love, and at the same time we want to draw in new players and make games that are accessible to them, so that's really an important thing to consider when starting a new project. Now here I kind of did think that he was trying to dance around the question a little bit and avoid it, but basically he was trying to say like they want to make sure that everyone is able to play Pokemon a lot, and they want to make sure that the longtime fans keep having Pokemon games in order to play them, and they want to make sure that a lot of new fans are trying to get into Pokemon, so that's why they're releasing games and they're trying to make sure that there's things out there for them to play. But at the same time I also think that money has to be a factor in this. They're definitely a business, they want to try to make sure that they're getting profits and sales, and so I really do think that that is a part of why they're releasing games so often now. Like obviously he's not going to say that inside of this interview, but like if you think about it, did we really need Ultra Sun and Moon? Did we really need Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee? Could we have gotten from Pokemon Sun and Moon right to Pokemon Sword and Shield? Probably, but it would have been a long wait and a lot of people wouldn't have liked it, and so that's why they had these games come out so that people have something else to play. But like I definitely think that money has to be a part. He's not going to talk about it, but like Pokemon games sell really well. Like they can pretty much put out a Pokemon game and expect 10 million plus sales. So yeah, I definitely think that money is a part of it as well, but he's obviously not going to mention it. And finally, the last question that I have here is from Eurogamer, and so they said here, you mentioned that Let's Go and a few comments about difficulty, but you also mentioned a while back that if it was really popular, you'd consider doing other Let's Go style games based on others in the series. It seemed that it went pretty well to me, so in the end, are you planning on doing more things like that, carrying on a Let's Go series alongside a main one? And so Mr. Masuda responded by saying, so at the moment there's no particular plans, but if the fans really like it, then definitely keep those voices coming out to the Pokemon Company and Nintendo, and we'll make sure to hear them. We want to hear those comments. So yeah, it looks like as of right now they don't have any plans for another Let's Go style Pokemon game, but he's basically saying if you did enjoy Let's Go and if you would like to see other Let's Go type of games like Pokemon Let's Go Johto or Pokemon Let's Go Hoenn, those types of games, if you do want to see more Let's Go games, then definitely be sure to keep talking about them and make your voices heard by the Pokemon Company and Nintendo. Now personally for me, Let's Go was a pretty fun game. I did have a good time with it, but I don't know if I would want another Let's Go Pokemon game like based on another region. I think it was just a nice little fun game to have for its one time. I would much rather have like other Pokemon spin-offs instead of just having more Let's Go games. I would like to have like Mystery Dungeon or Poke Park. If you guys ever play Poke Park on the Wii, there's a sequel on the Wii as well, but those games were so much fun. So I would love to have like a new Poke Park or like a new Pokemon Ranger or Pokemon Conquest or something like that. Like I just feel like more spin-offs would have been nice instead of just continuing on with Pokemon Let's Go, but that's just my opinion. And so there you go guys, those are the new details on Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, as well as Game Freak's thoughts on their development and other things about Pokemon. If you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to click that like button, and also comment down below and let me know what you guys think of all this. What do you guys think about the things with Pokemon Sword and Shield, and what do you guys think about like Game Freak and their developmental processes, and how they feel about other things like the Pokemon Let's Go franchise? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. If you're new to this channel, then please be sure to subscribe. I'm definitely going to have some more Pokemon content in the future, so please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Click on that bell to become a part of the notification squad. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.